So what are the common ideas in general e4, d5 positions? I guess taking is the most obvious choice.
Yeah, taking and then two branch points from there if you take back with the queen or if you play knight f6.
Okay, guys, I'm on mute,
What I know.
server mute now. Go ahead and let me know in the chat, in the Discord chat, if there's any problems with hearing me, and I can fix that. But otherwise, I can't hear anybody, and I do have to push to talk in order to speak. So if I mess that up, I'm sorry. But here we go.
All right, so we were just listening to doberm4n cheat his way through to a better position and a better game. He has a secondary alt called Ian on, which is listening to the commentary right now. But we are pretending like we don't know that, and doberm4n will be playing with himself on mute. As they
Yeah, I
are
think we can.
starting, and it is not actually e4, d5. It is knight f3, knight f6. So all of the opening preparation is out the window of the leader right now. Knight f3 is not that common of an opening move. I believe it's played like only a few % of the time. Because you can kind of give black a free choice as to what opening he wants to play. d4 is often played, I think. I mean d5 as black as a response to knight f3. Just to get that space in the center.
And then it looks like we have a very unusual response back from White here.
The double knights. So he definitely wants to still keep e4 in mind. That's the idea with c3. You are not going for a queenside attack because the knight blocks off the c2 pawn from moving too quickly in the opening. But maybe a double pawn, e4, d4 are both open.
That'd be pretty exciting for me.
Mm-hmm.
Since
Yeah,
I've been recently studying the four knights from White side. So hopefully it goes that way.
I'll say right off the bat, this is not a common opening for me to get into. Typically, knight to f3 is something that I'll play sometimes. Usually I lead with e4. Only thing I know about my opponent is that he's a Scandinavian player. And while I do get that position fairly often, I don't really enjoy playing it from the white side. And I thought about playing d4, even though that's not my normal. It's not really in my repertoire. I can play it, but certainly prefer the open positions versus closed ones. So yeah, of course I can't immediately play e4 after he plays his knight to f6. So I thought about d4 there. But I'm going to leave it up to him to see which pawn he pushes or to see if we have four knights.
So pretty much we exactly, doberm4n said exactly what we were already saying. We're kind of waiting whichever pawn you want to push right now. I think the more common openings, the more common ideas here are actually either d5 or g6. Because if you develop the f6 knight as the first move, generally as black, you'll see, on the ideas at least, to play g6 and bishop g7 afterwards to get a really quick castle in. Just kind of wait until what white wants to do and counterattack that. Make sure his center doesn't come too big and you can challenge it later. So it's kind of funny to see how both players at this moment want to wait out for what the other player's trying to do. But we see
c5.
Okay, well, we have a c pawn push here. Typically, that's going to be a Sicilian type position that I would get into with that. So my inclination is to play e4 right now and see what happens there.
So it seems like black took a couple minutes to think about that position. And I think the Sicilian is what he was probably hoping for. I don't think any other main openings could come from this. I guess now that white's played e4, you could avoid Sicilians and go d5 here. Challenging the center, supported by the f6 knight, as well as the queen.
The super nice thing about the setup that we have here is that I'm able to comment on my iPhone with just the headphones on, with the microphone, and so I'm able to get up and because this is a longer time control, it's a 45 game. I'm able to get up and drink and grab snacks if I need to, go to the restroom, that sort of thing. But I'm not tethered to the computer with a cord like you would be, I guess, if you had the microphone plugged into that. So I'm really liking this setup. This is cool. As far as the game goes, oh yeah, the important stuff. So I'm doubting that we're going to get into the Scandinavian position with the setup here. So it seems like the idea to go for those knight moves to begin with may have induced a difference um, for my opponent there, which that was the goal.
Black is definitely taking a long think, given this unusual opening. This move also looks normal, and then either of the central pawn pushes that would transpose into a normal Sicilian also look normal. And it looks like black is now down below 39 minutes. So he's really considering what type of position he wants here. I would, personally, I would just pick one and go with it. I'm pretty sure that both sides don't know this type of opening so well.
Hello back. I'm so sorry. My laptop
That's
just
okay.
completely crashed. Everything was gone. But I'm okay now. It should be fine. Can you
That's
walk me
good.
through your ideas that you just mentioned? Just very quickly.
Yeah, so it looks like they might transpose to a Sicilian if black plays a natural like knight out or one of the central pawn pushes. Except for d5 here, I think d5 would be a little bit different.
Yeah, I'm not sure if d5 is actually a good option A because d5 runs into e5. You know, for e5, your knight has to move. You can't really move to g4 because it just gets kicked by h3. So the knight ends up either on h5 or h6.
All right.
Plus,
Well, we have
Or
a d pawn
E4.
push here. It's a typical move in the Najdorf variation. Of course, we were a little bit out of move order on here. And so my first thought is playing d4 right now should give us that that same sort of Najdorf, or I guess have
Sicilian dragon.
transposed into it. And I guess other candidate moves could include the bishop out there. But I think freeing up or grabbing more central control at this point and freeing up my dark square bishop seems the way to go.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, you have to play either d3 or d4 at some point, and definitely if you're white, you'll probably want to play d4 here, because d3 is just a bit too slow, not really helping your f bishop. Plus, if you play d3, the g3 and bishop g2 is not that nice, because your bishop kind of has nowhere to go, and it's looking towards e4, which will be a very hard rock in the white position, so you're not really looking at anything either. So I think d4 is certainly the way to go. And if not this move, then definitely in a few moves.
Yeah, it looks like they are going down the main Sicilian lines now. So he did play E4 and then take.
Yep. So this is literally the dragon position, isn't it? With the
Okay, this is
a6
looking familiar
afterwards.
to me.
Well, now, yeah,
So I
with A6,
think
it's the Najdorf.
in general, my plan here is to be as aggressive as possible. And I have both knights developed. So the next logical choice is to develop the other minor pieces, meaning both bishops.
Yeah, you can't really say that that plan is not a good idea, because it is a good idea. Your pawn pushes on that grade here yet, and the two knights are pretty much where they want to be. This is a very theoretical position. So if you can crunch the theory in this position, you're going to be a very happy man if you know the theory here.
Probably the most popular position in all of chess, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty
At all
close indeed.
levels.
I mean, every full player has played this position at least a few times in his life.
It helps that Kasparov and Fischer are big proponents of the Najdorf, so
Okay,
everyone wants to copy those
so looks
guys.
like my opponent's planning on fianchettoing the bishop here. And I don't know what that's going to mean for me. I guess more pressure on my d4 knight, as well as potential x-ray on this rook at some point, depending on what I play. So I'll have to keep watch out for that. Thinking probably a good idea is to go ahead and play the bishop here. It's the most forward square for this bishop, and seems like it will give it the most activity. That also limits his ability to play the e pawn more because of that pin on the knight. So I think I'm going to go with that.
Tinan, your building people behind you are quite loud. I'm not sure if you are
Let
able
me
to fix that.
turn down the sensitivity of my mic.
It's quite loud. I think it's even louder than your voice. I'm not sure if the sensitivity would even help. Well, it's definitely a bit more silent now. So maybe it's fixed, who knows. Anyway, white should be safe to castle here. And maybe play bishop g5, queen d2, stuff like that. You either know a very theoretical line at this point, or you just develop with natural moves. Natural. You get bishop e3 would work as well. By the way, Tina, if you're talking, I can't hear you anymore. Or did your laptop crash as well? As indeed, bishop
Okay,
g5 was
attacking my
played.
bishop. I plan to move it back to this cute little b3 square, knowing that he doesn't have a way to attack it immediately. The only way that he can put more pressure on it is to then play the a pawn 2 moves. And if he plays the a pawn, then of course I can push my a pawn, giving the bishop a home.
All right, I'm gonna try push
So
to talk, so you don't hear the building noise.
that would be awesome. By the way, I believe a tactical idea was just missed, or a tactical kind of a one moment move that they were missed. Is of course after b5 was played, you immediately think, ah, you should move your bishop back. But as you see, Stockfish has thrown in quite a jump for white, and I believe that is because the intermediate move, bishop takes f6, is a great move now. Because, well, you cannot take on c5. I mean on c4 as black, because you lose your rook. So you basically have to take on f6. That is not very nice for black because one, it creates a doubled pawn on the f file. Two, it creates a single pawn on the d file, and it blocks out your bishop. So maybe even that kind of weak pawn in the middle for white that does not have much support right now can later be exchanged for an f pawn. And basically, you're just making a lot of moves at that point as black in order to develop your pieces. So maybe
Opponent
a bit
just
of
mentioned
thinking.
that the game link wasn't posted, so he's going to be kind enough to post that in the Slack, so that the nice bot finds it and decides that we are indeed playing at the time that we've scheduled. Okay, so opponent here has played bishop to b7
Well, it looks like white missed that
and
tactic, and
putting more
a couple
pressure
more
on
moves were
this
played.
e4 pawn.
He retreated his
That
bishop
looks like a nice diagonal
to
for his bishop.
b3, and then black played bishop b7.
So bishop takes f6 is still on. I think you should still play it.
So it looks like there's quite some pressure here. Black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so bishop takes f6 is even a multi-purpose move now because it lessens the pressure on e4. Basically, you can take on f6 now and castle afterwards, and your king is not in any trouble anymore. Plus, the e-file is open, which is helpful because white is a bit further developed and can get his rooks out a bit earlier. So any open files right now would be just great for white. Like normally in these positions, you would want to just develop as quickly as possible, but in this case, this is such a position where now you can play a move, and if you wait a move, then bishop g7 will be played. You cannot play the move anymore. So fending off castling for another move, I think, would be way worth it. So of course the general idea that Doberman had of playing his bishop out, knowing you can retreat it to b3 is always great. And it's a good idea, and you should definitely uh, play bishop out if you and you know if you're even more secure because you can just retreat and there won't be any pressure. But even after you have an idea, then you should just always look a few seconds for each move you play, because you know the the classical saying, if you find a good move in a position, look for a better one. That just counts here so much because it'd be really helpful. F3 is played, which is another way of defending e4. I do not think that was the right idea because, first of all, d4.
Okay, bishop has gone to g7 as expected because of the g pawn. So now that I've finished developing my minor pieces, my plan should be to get my queen to a good square and castle, connecting my rooks, and then we can think about attacking. And I think typically in this type of position, white is actually looking to castle queenside, which is why I played the f3 move. I'm probably not going to castle kingside because of that. And putting my queen on d2 uh, gives me this option to exchange off the dark squared bishops at some point. And I don't have to worry about protecting this e-pawn with the queen any longer. So I think the right move here is to play queen to d2.
Did you hear what Nork
In
said in
this
my team
position, I
chat?
mean, queen d2 is just a fine idea. Doberman kind of missed the idea of course, taking on the f6, giving a multitude of ideas. But for now, I think castling queen shot should be fine. You should watch out though, because black can very easily kind of overtake the queen side with those two pawns that are there. They're quite far advanced already, so you should always watch out for any problems with those. And yeah, f5, queen d2 is a good idea because you can perhaps exchange bishops with g6. And the g6 bishop is very good now because it not only attacks the d4, its knight, which is kind of weak now because I need the queen defends it, and you don't want a queen to defend the knight. But also because if the knight ever moves, then you have attackings on, eyes on b3, b2. So just a very powerful piece in general, which is what you kind of expect that bishop to be. And what f3 did do was block out the b7 bishop, so you don't have to watch out too much for that anymore. Now, h6 was played.
So it looks like white can just win a pawn.
In
No
theory, it's a
amenable.
good move because, of course, the idea is that
Yeah.
you cannot exchange bishops anymore that easily because you cannot play bishop h6 because both the bishop and the rook are defending it now. So in order to keep
Okay,
that
candidate
powerful
moves here. It seems like retreating the bishop to e3 is just a little too passive, even though it's a nice diagonal. I think keeping the pressure on the F knight at this point makes the most sense, and there's absolutely no way that he's going to push G5 to hit my bishop again because of how weakening that will be for his king position. I assume that he's not going to castle on the queen side because of the advanced pawns, so I'm going to go ahead and play to H4 with the bishop.
I was gonna say that to me, this isn't. This seems pretty committal from black, and it makes it harder for him to castle because he would
Keeping
lose the
pressure on the
pawn.
knight, I think, is a good idea still, but I'm not sure if it's quite the best move. Because I think both bishop to e3 and even taking on f6 would make sense now. Because if you take on h6, then if you want to keep a healthy kingside structure, the bishop will have to recapture. And castling kingside will be met with another bishop g7 move, which is cost time for black, which you don't really want to spend in this position because if white is aiming to castle queenside here, every pawn move you can get in is some time you really want to take advantage of. So maybe winning a tempo there would have been nice for white. But you do give up the bishop, which you might later be able to trade for the dark square bishop. It's kind of a toss-up. I don't think bishop h6 is a bad move at all. On the other hand, e3 does also defend d4 a bit better. So your queen might be able to do some other stuff. Plus, with e3, you also keep pressure on h6 still, which also makes castling a lot harder for black. Because, I mean, you definitely don't want to castle on queenside in this position as black. So, even though you do keep pressure on the knight, I don't think bishop e3 or even bishop takes f6 would have been bad moves. Maybe even better. Because of that kingside pressure that you keep with those moves. And now it looks like your bishop is still doing stuff, but really that knight is well defended. And you don't really want to trade it that easily or that quickly. So, I mean, I can't call it a bad move, but just some alternatives to think about. So bishop e3 was the early, and then after castles you can't, of course, because you lose this one. Or even bishop takes f, and then after taking and castling, for example. White is a bit. Black is struggling to castle kingside now because the queen is still attacking this square. You don't want to lose this pawn, and to prevent that, you either have to move the bishop back, which loses a tempo, or you have to push, which weakens the king side. Queen, yeah, the king side, or even g5, which just looks very bad. I'm not sure if it is actually bad, but
I think there was a game at
it
the
definitely does
Club
not look
Cup.
good. And no, Starfish does not like that at all. I'm not sure how it's exactly faulty right now. Probably these of h4. But yeah, those are some ideas you can have. And why taking that might not be a bad idea, or playing to e3.
So idea here is that if he plays the knight, I'm just going to let him grab this bishop, which I normally don't like to do, and that's probably the plan I would be playing for if I was him. But the benefit there is that, at least what I see, of course, me recapturing with the knight, is that he'll have spent 1, 2, 3 tempos with this knight to go capture that bishop. And the result would be that I have got a lead in development and am able to increase my pressure along this d file, and recapturing with the knight even opens up uh, this d file even more. So now that I'm attacked with the knight, I'm probably don't have too much choice but to move it, and of course gaining an attack on this b pawn.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from what you were saying, Felix, was that I remember seeing a game at the European Club Cup where Black pushed this in a Sicilian, where Black pushed this h6 move, and White had this battery against it. Black eventually castled kingside and then had to move his king over to h7 to continue to protect this pawn. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
was Van Forest Ivanchuk, and Ivanchuk actually won with black. So I think it's possible, but um, it was definitely a different position than this one.
Yeah, you definitely can if you know how to defend this, of course. I'm not looking at 10 moves ahead just yet. I'm sure it's possible to actually defend because, I mean, even stuck for chess, it should be possible to defend either way. So definitely a possibility, but just I'm not sure if I would want to go to that length right now, to those lengths.
Right. And I think I've studied bishop g5 lines of the Najdorf, where white plays his bishop here. And I think either you typically, most of the time you take, but the other option is to go back here. I don't see a lot of people go back this way with their bishop. So
Back
this
to
isn't,
e3, you mean?
yeah, back along this diagonal at all. But this isn't the typical main lines of that variation. So there might be some differences that I don't know, but just to share that, I see
Yeah,
typically in those bishop g5 Najdorfs, they typically go along the h4 d8 diagonal, and they don't move their bishop back along this other diagonal.
yeah, it does look a kind of counterintuitive because you just moved it all the way over there, and then you moved it back. So it kind of looks stupid, but in this case, I think you still keep pressure on h6. So I don't think it's that bad a move. But
Yeah, I
indeed,
don't think it's
there might
bad
be
either.
better alternatives, and it really depends on the position. But yeah, b4 was played by black after white castled. Queenside, that is. So indeed, black is just trying to get a bit of space in on the queen side right now, just trying to pester white's pieces. But in this case, I mean, this knight is not in the greatest position right here anyway, because you don't want to move to, like, any of these positions don't really do much. Like, are these squares where the knight could possibly go? And here it doesn't do much either, so you kind of want to trade it off for the f6 knight. Plus, if of course this continuation is
Well, I
going
feel
on,
really
like,
confused in this situation here. My consideration was that the knight can at least blockade this a pawn right here, but that I don't really want to rely on this bishop to support it. That being said, here's going to lead to some exchanges, which I don't really want to have to recapture with the e pawn. And here seems passive. These squares don't look that good. So without getting into time trouble, I need to keep playing here.
so instead of trading off everything on d5, which I think would have ended up with an advantage, because you have a bit of an advantage in how you develop your pieces. So trading off a bit and having the rooks on the middle open files would be great. Knight a2 seems a bit too passive. I mean, you do prevent, of course, the pawns from advancing, as Doberman said. But on the other hand, yeah, it doesn't really do much. Because you can't move to this square, you can't move to this square, you can't move to this square. And of course, you can't move to b2. So this knight is completely closed off at this point. So you'd have to attack d6 to actually move it. Or later on, if these pieces move, you might be able to move it. I think trading it off for the f6 knight on d5 would have been a better idea. I mean, the idea is to prevent the pawns from pushing, which is a fair point, because you do need to prevent those pawns from pushing.
Okay, so I brought the rook over to the e file. I needed to develop the rook, and so placing it on this central file seemed like it made the most sense, and it's going to support a later e pawn push. Okay, he castles. So now I think I should be trying to focus on a kingside attack. That's what I'm going to start calculating.
So indeed, rook e1 is played, which is a good move because you need to get control over the center squares. But it might have made more sense to play it after you tried it on d5. Because after you trade on d5, then actually this capture occurs after a little while. And with that capture, the e-file is actually open, so this square will be weak. And you don't want to push too many queen pawns as black, I mean, because that just weakens the king side and even strengthens this pin that white has on the f6 knight. So it's not a bad move at all. It might even be the best move in this position still. But generally that would have been even stronger if the e-pawn would have recaptured here after knight had moved to d5.
Doberm mentioned that he didn't like that he would have to recapture with the pawn. But I don't see any issue with the pawn being there at all. It's supported well, and it's pretty far advanced in helping to restrict black's pieces. So I definitely liked that plan a lot better.
Yeah, I think so as well. Because this pawn just helps so much because it restricts e7 from advancing if the bishop didn't already do that. Plus, indeed, you have so many rooks and queens in the center compared to these ones that are not doing all that much. I mean, this one is guarding the a5 pawn, and the other one is guarding the f7 pawn? Question mark. So yeah, you definitely have more center activity. So really, any pawn that is strong in your center would help white more than it would hurt him.
Now I'm a little bit worried about this backwards f pawn. The reason that I played the g pawn was because I want to open some lines up here, but I can't just do it on the e file yet because of this pressure from the knights and the bishops. So my plan is, if I'm able to play this g pawn at some point and open a line, and until he pushes his e pawn or d pawn, my bishop's kind of out of play here. Okay, so we get this move, g5. Now is the right time to move the bishop, I think. So I got to find a good diagonal for that.
Did you know which bishop he was referring to? I think he wants
Uh,
to take his dark squared bishop back and
yeah, I mean this bishop is very
help.
much in the spot it wants to be. You can't
Yeah.
really improve this bishop much. So definitely indeed bishop to f2 or bishop to g3. Either one is fine. Maybe g3 is better because you have in f3 you can only move to e3. And if g5 is played, then you wanted that extra line. But that's also what I was kind of talking about earlier about moving to e3. Because
Yeah.
now you're kind of restricting your h pawn from advancing with that bishop. Plus, it's not doing much. I think if it would have been on e3, like the idea for white here, or an idea, is to move your bishop away to e3. And that would have been done already if you had moved it to e3 earlier. And you haven't really been pressuring it much, so in the end it might have been better.
Well, my gut reaction here is to play the knight up here attacking this bishop. And if he takes
Knight
the knight,
c5, you mean?
recapturing with the bishop, of course. But if he takes the bishop, well, I'm not sure how that a pawn recapture is going to affect me. If I take his knight, which was my
Yeah,
first
the
thought,
a-pawn recapture
then
should
this
be fine, I
recapture
think.
prompts me to move the knight right away. But then he has this extra, or at least ends up having equal amounts of pawns here on the queen side.
I don't see
And
your
if
arrows
I
on the board, by the
don't
way, if you're doing them.
make a nice hole for my bishop, that's going to present some problems.
I think you have to go to the Twitch stream to see his arrows. He's playing on
Not
his
sure
board
here,
that he's
but
playing on.
my gut is telling me probably capture is best.
You don't see each other's arrows.
Because I don't have enough
Hey,
tempo to move the knight without him being able to play c4. But he can't play c4 unless he supports it. Okay.
so yeah, I think knight is c5 was a good move for black. I think also e5 would have been good. Just kicking that knight from a center square and making him go to some uncomfortable position. I mean, you do also prevent f4 a bit with that, which of course can't be played just yet, but in the future. But mainly e4. I mean e4, e5 is.
Interesting game so far. As far as who has a better position, well, materials equal, and it looks to me like my light square bishop has more activity than his. Okay, so this exchange here, I retain this file for now, and looks like I either munch this e-pawn or the bishop, and he's given me a little choice here, so it seems to me that that bishop is going to be black's best piece, and I might as well take it because the check.
About that to go through the study a bit because a lot of moves have been played in this past minute. So white definitely looks to have the advantage, at least a small one, because your rooks are just way more powerful right now. And if you double on the e file on the d file, it's very hard to get rooks up on the d file because the square that you kind of want to enter in as black through d8 is not supported at all. So it's hard to have some counterweight against those rooks. Now, even if you exchange the bishop for knight, I mean, you do give up the bishop pair, but the rook might enter on d7 if you do exchange. So this is definitely not looking bad for white. Not sure if it's winning. But it's definitely ahead, I would say.
Yeah, it looks very even. But definitely white is probably a little bit better, as you said. He has his two bishops definitely look like they're placed pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, both the bishops and the rooks are more promising on white's end. Black does have to watch out for that. White does have to watch out for that weak f4 square, which I might be able to hop into if some of those pawns move. And indeed, h4 can be played.
Okay, so if he doesn't capture, my plan is to just push the h pawn. Okay, that's another option there. So either we open these lines up on the king side, or let me calculate here.
So what I would say is h takes g, and then g. If you take both pawns, then you kind of just lose the knight. Or you have a very dangerous h-pawn. So I think black made a huge mistake here. Because, I mean, let's say you do g takes h in this position. Oh, wait, the knight can recapture, of course. That's not so good. H takes g, king takes, g takes h, knight takes. That has to be a mate. The king is way too weak for black right now. Oh wow, Stockfish is actually giving this +6 for white. So yeah, opening the king side in this position for black was not a good decision because you won't be able to push pawns here to victory as black. So opening any of these lines just screams, hello, I would like my king to be attacked by your two rooks. And the knight is an okay defender, but it can be taken out at any time. The light squared bishop for black is not doing anything. Two rooks can come in on h8. But if you have a rook on h1 and a rook on g2, then they won't be doing much either. So this is looking really tough for black. Because there's a lot of different ways you can attack the king. Plus, basically all access points to the f-file are closed off because
I'm feeling like opening these kingside lines up so that I can bring both rooks over is the way to go. So that's my plan at the moment.
So yeah, that would seem in my eyes exactly the good plan. Because the f-file, I mean, f8 you have a rook, f7 you have a pawn. 6 is defended by the bishop. f5 is defended by the pawn. f4 is defended by the bishop. And to get to f3 is a long way for the king, which you would have to move all the way on the h file because you can't access either f4 or g4. So basically, the king will not be able to flee at all from those two files at the moment, unless you make huge changes to your structure, such as moving the knight. But all that costs time, which you don't really have right now. So Doberman chose to actually change the bishop before doing anything here. And I think that kind of screws up the attack. Because this just frees up the f4 square for the king. And also the f6 square. So after doing that, the king just has escape squares. Which you do not want to allow him to get at all. Because in that previous position, you kind of wanted white to... Sorry?
It seemed like he was talking about the right plan, getting his rooks over.
Yep.
But yeah, I think he could have kept the tension there with all the pieces and the pawns attacking black's pieces. And after he had his pieces in place, then execute his attack.
Yeah, he was just too eager to exchange those pieces because you know, right? You think, hey, well, the king is weak there. Let's just exchange pieces around the king. But that bishop at that moment was doing so much more than the knight was, because it was controlling those two very important squares in f4 and f6. While the knight, I mean, to control that, you'd have to play. I mean, you can't even play knight d7 because the rook is defending that. And you can't play knight g4 because the pawn is defending that. So there was no way for the knight to kick the bishop. And there's no way for the king to kick the bishop because all the squares around it are defended. So the bishop was just much more powerful piece than the knight at that moment. And because this is such an important position.
Okay, this looks winning for me. Man, I guess I miscalculated that, huh? Wonderful. Okay, so somehow I thought that was forcing his king to the f file and I was going to win a rook.
Yeah, I kind of figured that was the idea. But the king has that h6 square. And now you're almost equal. I mean,
great tactics here. Okay, so I need to get this light squared bishop active. One way that I could do that is to move the c pawn and bring it down, or I could play to c4 first. And I guess neither of those options are looking amazing to me. I kind of like just recapturing with the rook at this moment and enjoying his king position. But what to do with the bishop? So I need to figure that out now, sort of figure out how this endgame is going to play out, and then I'll make that recapture or not.
recapturing with the rook sounds like a good plan. I mean, that's the one thing you kind of have over black in this position, right? The king's position. Because black is kind of tied to the defense of the... I mean, tied to the h file right now. Like that nice g2 rook that you have. And I'm not sure if white is able to get a rook as nice as that, which is just completely cutting off the king. So if you play this well, you might be able to play it with a king up in this endgame. But what black does have is more advanced pawns. So a4 is looming. Maybe c4 in the near future. b3. And then if you do not recapture in the right way, then they will be able to move quite fast. Might have to devote the bishop to the defense of those pawns. So yeah, what piece will be more effective in the endgame? Black's king or the... I mean, white's extra king? Or the black queen side pawns, which will be rushing. So this is pretty much the perfect plan you can have. As
Okay,
white,
so
I
he's
mean...
pushed the a pawn here. I guess my choice is to just take, captures the bishop. There's no checks that the bishop can play. Alternatively, and this capture is not so bad for me. I don't really mind that. Ooh, I guess I can't capture with the C pawn because the A pawn's hanging, and that means that I will have to recapture with the A pawn, allowing the rook to come down for the check. I don't see that being a big issue, but I got to calculate some more here.
So yep, that seems fine. I mean, you do allow the king to move to the GNF files. Maybe you attack your pawns, but you do get a pawn for it. And
I
that's the
guess one
central
option
pawn,
is
which
to
is
just grab the pawn right now. How does that lose for me?
I do hope he's not talking about the A pawn.
Yeah, I don't think he sees the tactic with the F pawn pinned.
Well, he did say take the pawn, but I'm not sure
Right,
if he's
but
saying take the
his
A pawn
arrow
or take the F pawn.
his arrows are pointing towards either letting black take on b3 and then I don't know.
I like okay, displayed actually. Yeah, you could also just take an F, but that does not work because you're missing a move.
Wait, black just took on e4?
Yeah, you
Interesting.
can
I
do that,
didn't look
right?
at that move, bishop takes. So my first thought here is that playing this check is going to allow me to save my bishop. Or wait, or I guess I play this check. And if I play that check, then my rook is attacked. And that might not be good. If I play the g4 check, my rook will still be attacked, but then I can recapture. And seems like safety. The other option is just recapture with the pawn. That doesn't seem good though.
So bishop takes on e4 is now played. Yeah, it looks like bishop takes f5 will work because you end up with a pawn more at least, which is I think why Stockfish also gets +1. Pawn takes f7. King h6 attacking the rook so you don't lose a bishop, and then moving it to g3, protecting the f pawn.
Yeah, that definitely looks good.
I mean, you don't really see another way. You don't want to just capture here right now, because you're not up a pawn anymore. So if you want to end up with a pawn more, you have to play this continuation. Nork is playing very fast, by the way. He has gained 4 minutes over 30 moves. It's like 35 seconds per move,
He was
which is
down to
very...
like 37 minutes in the opening.
Nork was?
Yeah, he was. And then these last couple moves he's been blitzing.
That would have to be the last 50 moves done in a few seconds. think he was at 37. I don't think that's possible with time-wise. Around there. Because you're winning max 3 minutes every 4 moves if you play them instantly. That have to be 60 moves. Playing instantly. Well, let's talk about the position. My bad.
I still think white might be better if he just gave up the bishops.
You mean play like bishop g4 or
Bish-
something?
no, no, just take on e5, e4, and then take back with even material. White might still be somewhat better. It's probably a draw actually, but white is the one that would be pushing a little bit more in this position.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it does look a bit better for white, especially because black's king is just completely out of play at this moment. But on the other hand, black's rook will be more active. Alternatively, you could play rook d7 and try that. But yeah, black has a bit of more pressure on the queen side because his pawns are so far advanced.
That's true, but you can just lock up the pawns.
Yeah, I suppose that works. Maybe play c3. Oh, that won't work because of
And then your
rook
king's
there.
already on this side where probably keeping the extra pawn is white's better choice.
Hey, there was a weird continuation of bishop g4, which is the move we discussed but wasn't favored. Actually, that does work. I don't know why we didn't favor it.
Okay, first thought is that I can win the c pawn by playing the rook down, and not sure yet how he saves it.
So now you should just attack the queen side pawns as well with your rook. The bishop can't really move quite yet because of the bishop, the black bishop attacking it. Yeah, I think rook c7 might have been better at this point. Because with this rook, you don't really activate your piece, and you do activate black's rook.
Does black have to go to that diagonal? What if he goes to like here with his bishop?
I'm not sure because the pin might be annoying. Actually, it's not. Yeah, you can just move king there. Why doesn't Stockfish like it? I guess the king is too far away from these squares. Because both the bishop and rook, and both the bishop and king are like kind of out of play. compared to your rook and bishop. Not sure if it's that bad.
Endgames is by far one of my greatest weaknesses right now as a Class B player. But my thought is I don't want to drop the hanging ape on, of course, even though I can still grab this one. It just doesn't make any sense. But I need a little luft for my king because of this rook bearing down on the d file. And being able to grab one of these dark squares, if he doesn't push the a pawn, is interesting. I expect him to capture, and my plan will be to recapture with the c pawn. Okay, so he plays it. And this is interesting, although the en passant makes that a challenge. I don't see how he can protect it, though, after I play here. Well,
So your white king is becoming a bit more active now. I think just taking would have been better, because now you kind of get a fracture. You do get a fractured queen side, where the
another
queen
thought that
side
I
pawns
have
used to be
is to play the check
free
here,
hand.
and then no, never mind. I think first I got to make some room for my king here.
This will become a very weird position, but I mean, white does end up with an extra pawn. But breaking through is so difficult here. I mean, I definitely think that c4 is the best move in this position, because the bishop cannot move, because c5 will drop. And you really don't want to allow that, because you get a free pass pawn. And that would definitely lose for black. So you have to capture en passant. And at that point, black's queenside structure is completely destroyed. And black does not have any chances of winning anymore, I believe. I'm not sure what jack he was talking about. Maybe rook check
So I
and
was
then over.
expecting this, and it looks like I have to push. Otherwise, I'm going to be recapturing with the a pawn, and then he's got a passer on the a file. Question is, if I push, can he get at that? Well, after recaptures, I don't know. Then he might have this move here, defending, attacking. No, that wouldn't work because I can just fork it. Okay, so what to do? I feel like pushing the b pawn is the way to go. And recapturing right now would be bad because of takes, check, takes, and then, yeah.
So looking at this a bit, I do think Doberman is right. You don't really want to allow bishop takes c4, Because you're just losing the a-pawn immediately. And then the rook will have to defend, and in that time the f3 pawn is definitely going to be hunted down. And the king can come on into play, and it'll definitely be a draw. I don't see how you can get a win from that. I'm looking at the stream now too, finally, so I can actually see what I'm talking about and not just listen. So king g6. I hope black isn't thinking about capturing on f3 now, because you don't have to recapture with the bishop. You can just recapture with the rook.
So now the question is, can I take this hanging pawn here? If I do, what I'm scared about is this check being played and me not having many good places to go. I guess in that case, it's really not the end of the world. Yeah, I guess he probably can't win the f-pawn, so maybe takes is the best idea right here. The other thought is to move the rook somewhere like here, attacking this pawn. Not really seeing how that's going to benefit me.
Yeah, I don't think you should move the rook at this point, because it's pretty much perfectly placed. You're just cutting out the king, making him only be able to use d6 squares. I mean, the king is just completely gone in this endgame, which is what white's advantage is right now. You should probably capture the king right now, maybe even play b5 and then scoot over and capture this pawn. And at any point the rook cannot move, because it's guarding the bishop. If the bishop moves too far,
Okay, so
you can move over.
now I got to figure out what is my opponent's plan. Well, he's not going to give his bishop up to come attack this pawn. So he's either planning to play, he's trying to get support for his bishop to go here, or he's planning to play the rook over here or here. Neither of those really make a lot of sense to me. I can't improve my king position at the moment because of a discovered check. I could push the pawn. That seems interesting.
Yeah, that is a very interesting idea. Pawn push is, in my opinion, at this point, the best move in this position. I mean, you can't guard it with the rook, of course, because the bishop is tied. I mean, the rook is tied down to the defense of the bishop. And you can't really guard it with the bishop, because you're losing c and a pawns if you do that. I mean, you're probably losing the a pawn either way now, but black really needs to keep this c pawn around, because otherwise you're down 3 pawns. And with the same color bishop ending, that should pretty much just be a free win for white. Especially these two passes, just push them around and push out to the 8th rank and promote. If you can trade them both for one, then this pawn should be for the bishop. Then this pawn should be enough anyway. And I don't really see how black easily stops the b pawn. Like, what does black have in this position to do, really? Can't move the king to improve it. Can't move the rook to improve it. Can move the bishop if you want, but why? It's almost a Zouk song that this.
Yeah, so this definitely looks a lot better for white. I think the only move is the bishop somewhere along this diagonal. And black
Yeah,
just
pretty much
keeps
right. Bishop
just keeps
e6.
just keeps his bishop there, and then white can do whatever he wants pretty much.
Yeah, those A and B pawns are going to be very tough to stop. Because you, at this point, cannot prevent the A3 pawn from falling. That is a weird
Well, I played the
move.
rook over to e5, and I like maintaining this tension on the bishop, but uh, I was scared about this e6 square being weak and him attacking it, with both pieces being able to gang up. Of course, I could play a check here, but I'm thinking I'm going to just push my f pawn to protect the rook, and fortunately, then it doesn't protect the bishop, which was really nice. But yeah, I don't think I need that.
Yeah, this is a lot tougher for white now. Now that that rook has to either be defended or move again.
Yeah, I don't really see a reason, indeed, why White would play this. I mean, Stockfish still likes it, but it just seems tougher now because you can't just freely move your A and B pawns anymore. There's kind of some pieces tied on the queen side now.
Yeah, and you can't really get your king. I guess you can still push b5 at some point, and then get your king
Yeah,
to
you
b4,
can.
and then
You definitely
right.
should, but why
But
not
then yeah,
earlier?
you're giving black moves to have some counterplay on the king side.
If the if the black rook would come to f6 now, would that help? I mean, how do you defend the? Oh, I guess you can push it, so no problem. B4 looks a lot tougher now to get in there. I mean B5. Because the rook, what the bishop f7 move did, I think, was free up the d file for the rook. Because at this point the rook can go to d3. and really force the king to make a decision. To either, at this point, go with b5 and go up, or go down and defend the a3 pawn. Because at this point, let's say you played b5, then the rook will come over. You may be able to take that a2 pawn, and if you defend it, then the c3 pawn will run.
Well, first
And
thought
it's
is to
very tough
grab
to.
this c pawn with the king. I guess I could grab it with the bishop too. If I grab it with the king, then of course he can bring his rook down here, and slightly harder for me to hold on to this pawn. In fact, maybe I can't. So let's rule out grabbing it with the king. And of course, I would like to exchange pieces as soon as I can get a nice chance to do that. Now doesn't seem like the right time, though.
Yeah, so taking with the king just runs into bishop f7, f7 check, and then you lose the a pawn, and that will be very dangerous for the a3 pawn. So if you take it, you should indeed definitely take it with the bishop right now. If you take it with the bishop, yeah, I don't see a problem at all. Black is kind of not doing much right now. You can play b5 again, king b4, king takes a3, king b4, a4, a5,
Okay,
a6,
so I have a
a7,
chance
a8.
to play this rook check, and what would that do? Well, he can play here or here. Here would be bad because, or f7 would be bad because of the discovery. Wow. So if he plays to f5, it looks like I can pick up the bishop. No, I can't. Okay. Interesting thought.
Yeah, the good thing about c4 being gone is that b3 is now available for the king, so it's a bit safer. And the rook cannot give endless checks because a3 is just able to a2 defends a3, the king a3, so the rook can't check it. Yeah, this looks like a position that white should be able to convert. But the time issue, nork is at 55 minutes. That's insane.
Would you just give up the f pawn now and go after? Just move the king over and get the a pawn, and then push your
Okay, I'm
connected
feeling like the bishop's doing a really
pawns.
good job holding the fort down right now. And the rook is well placed. I don't want to move it and let his king infiltrate my side. So I'm really feeling like just taking the a pawn with the king is the right way to go. Leaves me in a dark square. A pawn's double protected, and he can't go to f1 to just try to pick up that pawn because of the bishop. He can go back up to d4. Looks like forking. How does that play out?
So you're saying after rook d1 that you just don't mind f4 being taken? You just say like, well, I'll just
Yeah,
go for the a
move the
pawn and
rook
push those
somewhere
two.
here, and then I think just, yeah, giving up the f pawn makes a lot of practical sense, because you're gonna win the A pawn, and you have the two connected pawns that will march down the board. So yeah, I don't mind giving up the F pawn at all.
So rook d4 and then taking the f pawn. I mean, after rook f4, of course, your bishop is attacked, so you can't go take on a3. But you can just move the b pawn in the process.
Well, I guess if you have passed pawns, you should push them. And I can't find anything better to do. I feel like my king's position is pretty good where it is. I'm not scared of this fork. So, or sorry, the check here. So why not?
Yep, this should be a scary check. King b4, king a3. Pawn can't even be taken because of bishop c4. Bishop on c4 defends it. And now after the a3 pawn falls, you just push both. And that bishop is really doing a good job right now of just defending everything. As Balak, maybe the only plan here is to take on to take the f4 pawn, and then I hope you can trade the bishop for the 2 pawns at the end. Which would bring it into a rook and bishop versus rook end game. Ooh, the bishops are wanting to be traded, which I mean, this should just be a clear win from white now, shouldn't it?
I think it'd be pretty hard to trade the bishop for two pawns that are connected like that, but I guess that's a try for black.
I mean, this is just a 100% free win for white, right? Because bishop takes f7, bishop, king takes f7, king takes a3.
Yeah, they
And
took
then you have
bishops in the game.
3 pawns to defend. Even if you had just the b5 pawn right now, it would still be a win for white. Because of Lucina stuff. Just the a2 pawn would not be enough, but just the b5 pawn would be enough. And now b5 just runs. b6, how do you stop it? Honestly, you don't. This was well played by Dubman. He missed a few one move technical moves. But in the end, I think he played this endgame accurately still. Not sure if it was the easiest way, but everything worked. So he must have had some good plans in mind. That in the end just fairly easily won it for him.
Yeah, I didn't know about all this in the middle game here with maybe trading queens wasn't that good of an idea for black. Maybe he could have moved his queen somewhere. But then like around here in the study.
Yeah, I see it.
Because then you're just giving white a better endgame. That
You miss black.
Nork
You want to have white to trade of queens here,
yeah.
and then later on play a rook to d8. Yeah, I think I'm not sure about that really, because on the one hand, yeah, actually, I do think that would have been a much better idea. Because the idea for black is that the only thing that black really has here is a queen side attack. While white has pretty much more active pieces. We'll have the bishop pass soon. So the thing you can do right now is use your knight as a defender of the king side and attack. Yeah, as a defender of the king side, and then attack on the queen side. Disrupt white's position and maybe squeeze something out of that. I mean, objectively it won't work, but in a game it might.
Yeah, I think black was just not that good here, and trading down was probably not the most practical plan.
Mm-hmm.
He probably could have made some better moves before this, but he could have fought a little bit harder, I think.
Yeah, there was this middle game where they both kind of rushed through.
Yeah, we didn't get to look at a lot at it.
These positions around move 15 to 20. Those are kind of the positions that you want to think about. And then also for white around move 24, where we had that queenside tactic.
Sorry for the lack of commentary here. Time's a little bit low. Of course, I still get 45-second increment. But I need to find a way to win this, and I'm feeling like just pushing these pawns is pretty obvious here. So not really interested in this in a perpetual check. So I think I might retreat my king to this a5 square and know that between the rook and these two pawns I should be able to let's see, I guess he could come back with the check, couldn't he? So maybe I'll wait for him to actually play that check. Push the pawn, perhaps?
Yeah,
Yeah,
pushing.
looking at the game,
He's above an hour now,
definitely
Nork. I don't
definitely
think I've ever seen that before.
looks like a win. You can't really screw this up in any way at all.
No. I mean, the only way to maybe defend this is indeed rook c8. But then your king just moves to e7, a7, you've lost. Or a5, that's alright as well. And I mean, worst case scenario, you trade down on b7 and lose the 2 pawns there. But then you still have the f pawn. So a6 and then a7 here is a win.
Okay, looks like I got this game in the bag. Trading, he can't win. I mean, it just seems like silly for me to. I can push I can play a6 in order to protect that pawn even further. But like, what's the point? I don't know.
Yeah, anything wins there. A6 wins, F6 wins, Rook C5 wins. Giving up the rook might even win. He's trying to set a new record about how much time he can be left with at the end.
I think it's a bad problem for my whole team. My board 1 is like this, even though he's super high rated. He goes really
Just
fast.
blitzing out all moves.
Yeah,
That Bovin?
yeah.
I think I played him once, yeah. He blitzed
I
all
don't think I
moves.
need to give any more commentary on this. It
Still
seems
beats
like
me, but
anybody would be able to win this game. Could be wrong.
Just get 3 queens now.
yeah, you only need to watch out for stale matrix here.
As long as he has that rook, it's going to be hard to stalemate.
No, I mean that makes it easy because you can play like, let's say white is in a black is in a stalemate now without the rook. Then you could play rook a4.
Right, that's as long as black has that rook, he'll typically have a move with the rook.
Yeah, but that last move can be a check. And if your last move is a check, then
Oh, that's
Cool. Well,
true.
that was fun. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my server mute off and rejoin the conversation. But thanks to my opponent, thanks to the commentators. Had a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it too.
hey, congrats.
Hey, hey. How was it?
Hi there.
Congratulations.
Gee, good game.
I was hoping for some endgame tricks at the end, like still matrix with a rook left, and then a rook a4, and then a perpetual check around there. But it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
It's endgame technique. Both thought it could have been done a bit easier, a bit faster, but it was well played because you seem to have a plan. As long as you have a plan, you know it works, then it's all fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a look at this computer analysis real quick and see what kind of crazy stuff that I missed earlier in the game.
I think after the middle game, it was very clean from you.
Wow, that's not typical for me.
No, you spent quite a lot of time. I think. I think you play your time well in the end game because you thought about every move just well enough and long enough. And in the middle game, we felt like he could have taken a bit more time about some positions,
Yeah,
especially that queenside attack because you had a few tactics there. It took you maybe a minute to find a move. Like
yeah,
those are the positions that you can just with a few extra minutes often find that extra move. You know, I mean, even if there's nothing there, you can still gauge the position. Anyway,
right, right. Yeah, I'm seeing the spike up there, which I'm gonna look at without the computer arrows. Let me make sure that they're off. Okay, yeah, they're off. Well, okay, I can go ahead and look at it now, I this. So this is move 22. And my opponent for that played I played h4. Opponent played h5. Okay, so that because of the spike there, that means that I missed a tactic here. And let's see, what did I play here? So here I think I took the knight because I saw that this was going to be kind of a simple way to get the king out in the open and activate these rooks more. And let's see. I mean, I did think about g takes, and I saw knight after knight takes that I didn't really have a plan at that point. Like, what was it? I didn't know what I was going to do there. And, I thought, okay, it would be better if I could make the king walk into a pin. And then, from there, not only does the knight blockade my h pawn, but I guess it could maybe go to one of these weaker squares if I move my bishop somewhere else. Although I guess probably that file was the place to keep it. I don't see what the tactic is offhand.
Yeah, what you might notice is that kind of the complete F file is closed off with your pieces now. Is F3, F4, F5, F6, F7.
So you're
They're all
saying,
inaccessible to the king.
so I guess I can look at the variation here. So I was looking at this. So this is what you're saying, that the king is after g takes, knight takes. Is that the position you're looking at? Maybe I should look at the study so we're all on the same page.
We didn't go in depth in this on the study because you played it quite quickly, so we didn't really get to go through everything. Yeah, the general idea is to trade off both pawns, and then with both rooks on the G and H files, the king can't really go anywhere because the complete F file is blocked, and the rooks are behind it. So
I see your
you can,
point. So that because the bishop guards that one escape route.
yeah, exactly, and because you traded the bishop off for the knight,
Okay,
the king at the
that's what I was
F4 and
thinking
the
about.
F6
That's what.
squares to flee.
Yeah, I had that exact thought. So I thought, well, it's probably better for me not to trade off this bishop at this moment. But I didn't see how I was going to penetrate after knight takes. I didn't like. I figured like, oh, that H pawn is going to is going to block me. Is what I was thinking. But let's see. So I get maybe not the H pawn. So I guess if I take, then king takes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I guess it was the knight that I was thinking. So then I play the rook, and the king's got to go back here. And then I can pin the knight. Yeah, see, I guess I wasn't so sure how I was going to make progress after this knight was here, and then, the other rook comes to challenge. I'm sure the computer has a wonderful idea, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you're here, you can just play rook h2 afterwards. The rook from g to h3. And then maybe even check the king. And I'm not sure how you can save the knight at this point as black.
Good point. So this obviously is not good for black because of this pin. Yeah, that does look strong.
And now bishop f4.
Yeah, you're probably, if you're looking at the stream, then you're probably seeing some lag here.
Okay, well, I'm just looking at the stream indeed, and I'm seeing bishop f4 now.
Tell you what, I can go ahead and just.
Do you want to maybe go into the study so that we're on the same page?
Yep. Okay,
Okay, let's. So we're at h5 now, and now this move, I guess, or this move. They're both fine, but maybe even better is to just move a rook behind it. Let me see.
Wait.
And what move does Stockfish like most here?
Well, it hates
I'm
moving
wondering actually.
the.
Yeah, he really doesn't like that one. I would say just taking the pawns. I mean, H takes G, or G takes H. He finds an even better move, or he sees an even better move. Yeah, he hates every rook move. Except this one. He hates every rook move except H1. But yeah, whatever the absolute best move in this position isn't that important. Because G takes H, I mean H takes G or G takes H both seem to win. Tonight at least. In the end.
Yeah, for some reason it was just tough for me to calculate all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mainly of just intuition. Like, what do you think that the king will be able to go to, and what pieces will you think will be strong here? Because indeed, calculating everything here is quite tough. I mean, I know I wouldn't do it in my game.
After taking the
Okay.
knight, though, it's what you did in the game. It still looked pretty good for white. It's not like you threw away the advantage at all, so it's probably closer to a draw. But I still like white even after that. Not seeing that in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, it wasn't a complete blunder. And we're still in a nice position.
Okay, so if there was no big chances for him in the end game, the only other spot that I was curious about really was the opening and the beginning of the middle game. Um, and the reason I'm curious about it is because I've never played this position as white. I've played it as black quite a few times, or at least similar positions. But as white, I was a little bit lost on what to do, and yeah, so I'm curious what made the most sense.
Are you in the
I think we
study?
went over the opening quite well, actually. We were both awake at that point still. Please. Um, yeah, the first, what is it? 7 moves are quite standard. They were just basically Sicilian Dragon stuff. And then after b5 was played, that is move 7.5 then. You played bishop back very quickly, which of course is a knee-jerk reaction, but bishop takes f6 would have completely ruined black's king side structure. You can't take the bishop because you're losing the rook. I mean, you can't take the c bishop because you're losing the rook. So black ends up with a fractured kingside structure, and that tactics actually remains for another move. Where you could still have played it.
Oh, I see. So capturing the knight right away.
Yeah, instead of moving the bishop back. And it's also good because it removes pressure on e4, which means you don't have to play f3. Because that was kind of the other option, right? Either f3 or bishop takes f6, and either saves e4, which you really don't want to lose, of course. Yeah, or a queen move.
Mm-hmm.
But the queen kind of wants to move to d2 to maybe have some pressure on g6 with the bishop. So bishop takes f6 probably was the best move in that position. because it fractures the kingside structure and removes pressure on e4. I mean, you do lose bishop pass, so it's not amazing.
Right. Yeah, a
But
computer always seems to like those types of moves where you give up the bishop pair and there's a whole bunch of exchanges and then you're somehow better. But as a human, sometimes I struggle to understand like, okay, how would I have played that?
I understand. Yeah, maybe the two main things about why that's better is because there's one pressure on e4 now, and you can do two things. You can either defend it more or take out an attacker. I immediately thought about adding another defender, but of course you can also just remove an attacker. And in this case, that attacker also comes with the additional bonus of fracturing his kingside structure. So, well, of course, f3 is not bad. It's not a bad idea at all. And then castling queenside and going for an attack. But maybe the order of some of the moves might have been played a bit differently even afterwards.
Yeah, so here it likes bringing it back to e3.
Yeah, and we talked about that as well. And I think there's
Yeah.
two main ideas. First of all, because you moved it to h4, and then later on you thought like, oh, I kind of want to have that bishop on e3 because it's better there. So you're basically just saving a move later, and also it prevents what black from castling here because you keep that pressure on h5, and black doesn't really want to have to push those pawns because you're attacking on the queen side anyway.
That makes sense.
Or even bishop takes f6, bishop taking the knight at this point. And then if the pawn recaptures the bishop, will be stupid, so you don't want that. And if you recapture with a bishop, then first of all, castling becomes difficult as well. And you basically have to spend another move. So it's a bishop versus knight, but you do get another move. Yeah, as a human player, you might not play that, but
Yeah,
just
I
a
think
tempo,
those are
which
all good
might be
reasons.
in these positions. Because you're kind of aiming for a queenside versus a kingside attack. And then moving the bishop back a move might be worth it. And you're not really losing a move yourself because you had to move it back anyway. So it effectively saves two moves.
Yeah, that makes sense. So
But I
there
do
was two
understand
things
why
that
you.
was preventing me from taking with the bishop, and the first one was that I didn't really want to open up that diagonal for black's bishop. Like the
Yeah.
longer the knight sits there, kind of the happier I feel like I am because then I don't have to move.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like I have to move my d knight, which doesn't really have a good spot at the moment, and then I don't have to worry about the queen keeping pressure on the d knight or on its defense. And then the other thing that kept the other consideration I was having was, well, I feel like black's going to have to play this e pawn at some point to gain more central
Mm-hmm.
control. And like the whole reason I put the bishop there was to pin that knight and develop the bishop. But then if I just take it, then like what was the point of it? That I don't have the chance to
Yeah.
keep that pressure. And I don't know if that's the reason why he didn't move the e pawn or if there was just never a good reason to. But my guess is there was probably a reason to move it at some point.
Yeah, e5 definitely could have been played a bit earlier. It would have been a good move. But and I definitely think that taking the knight is not necessarily the best move. Maybe the computer thinks it's the best move, but it's not the best human move. But the pressure on the knight, the pinion that you're talking about, it kind of gets destroyed because after knight b to d7, that he plays later, I'm not exactly sure at what point he plays it. He actually plays it the exact next move. The pin doesn't really work anymore because now you can play e5 and the knight doesn't have to ever worry about that. And the bishop is not doing very much right now. So now
Right.
bd7 was a good move on his end because it kind of renders your bishop h4 move useless in some sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh
At
man,
that
so
point, I think you were planning on castling queenside already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
I
your
was
plan is
planning on
to
castling queenside. Yeah, well before that.
push these pawns, and then that bishop's in the way on h4. And then yeah, you'd have to spend another move to move that bishop so you can get your kingside pawns forward for an attack.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah, the bishop on h4 is more annoying to your side than to the black side right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, because I think my comment during the game was something like, "Well, this seems passive to move it back to e3,"
Hmm.
and it is. But
Yeah, it's a very
there's
counterintuitive move, right? Because you just moved to g5 out of your base, and then now you move it back as h6 is played.
yeah, but I also noticed that was going to be a nice diagonal because of those A and B pawn advances.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyhow, okay. So let me step up to this point. So here you probably saw I was considering knight d5,
Hmm.
and I mean, it seemed like I was going to have to recapture with the e pawn, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the battery that I just lined up on the d file.
Yeah, that's true. Well, both sides have ups and downs. Because on the flip side, indeed, you have to recapture with the d file. Well, first, of course, you recapture with the bishop, I think.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
you don't even have to. Either one is fine.
I think the bishop, just because your light square bishops can be blocked for a long time.
Yeah, you're true. I would recapture with the bishop as well.
Well, that's the only one
So,
that I was calculating was the knight there, and then of course him recapturing with the knight, and then me recapturing with the bishop, and then the e pawn. That's what I was looking
mhm.
at.
In this
Yeah, it
position,
removes some. Sorry, go
this
ahead.
this pawn is definitely advanced, but I think it restricts black a bit. And then you have this open file now, or semi-open file towards black. And his pieces, his rooks and stuff, are less active, and your pieces look more active here in the center. So I got your point about why you wanted to go knight a4 to stop black's pawn pushes, but this was definitely something that maybe could have been calculated a little bit further.
I think so. Yeah.
Knight a4 should kind of be a last resort. Because at this point, I mean, how many moves do you really need for black to actually be scary there? Because your knight at this point is looking at these four squares. Oops, this one, and this one, and this one. And he can't move to either of these four squares. So basically, this is a dead knight. It is not doing anything. While on d5, it can at least trade with this knight and remove some defenders on the king side. So just your knight is doing so much more there, even if it gets exchanged off for another piece.
Right. Yeah, it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't really pleased with the a4 scores, but the one factor that I was considering was that black. It's obvious that black is now going to want to play for
Mm-hmm.
a queen side attack against me, and with me moving my pieces towards the king side for an attack, I was going to be left with less defense. And so I thought, well, this knight might be a useful defender at some point. I just don't know.
Yeah, that's true. And I do think you're right about that, because I think it was in fact, not a very bad idea to move your knight here, because it is indeed. First of all, it forces him to play this move now already, Otherwise, you just lose this pawn, so it doesn't even lose a move. Plus, it indeed just it's very tough to attack this knight unless you play knight here and then you just exchange it off. A knight to c5.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which he did,
as
I
bad
think.
an idea as we make it sound, I don't think it was that bad of an idea in theory, really. Just kind of unfortunate that you have to sacrifice a knight pretty much to do it.
Right, right, exactly.
It's nice though that in the end the knights got exchanged. I mean that's why knight to c5 on his. I might actually head off to that now. Say goodbye for doberm4n. There he is already. I'm heading off now actually. I have to
Okay.
get up early tomorrow. So I'll see you later, and thank you for the game.
Hey, thanks for so much for the commentary. I appreciate it.
No problem. See ya.
I'll have to go back and see how it went. Yeah, that'll be cool. Thank you. And thanks, Teenan.
Yeah, no problem. Um, I hope my opponent or your opponent doesn't mind, but he just wrote in our team chat, I misplayed it. He needs to learn the Sicilian better or avoid it. So you played it pretty well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Um, we didn't get to do a lot of commentary on that middle game just because he especially sped up a lot, but it seemed like you found all the right plans towards the end game as you were transitioning towards the end game, and then it took a while to convert, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was still danger for me in that position with material being, similar, and still having a heavy and minor piece on the board. And so yeah, I was trying to be careful how I was playing it, but also trying to make sure that I was giving some sort of commentary, at least through the middle game on the ideas. That slowed me down for sure. I mean, it just the interruption in my thought process for the doing it for the viewers. Um, that actually slowed my game down quite a bit.
I think it's a tough thing to get used to because you don't typically do it, and then it's harder to vocalize it rather than just think through it. You're so much slower doing that, but it's probably a really unique thing for the viewers to see and hear about. So it was interesting for us commentators too.
Yeah. What did you think was interesting from the commentator side, besides the fact
Just
that I
a lot
couldn't
of
hear
the
you?
plans that you were thinking about were plans that we were thinking about, and trying to see if they worked. Um, and we could kind of see where your your thinking or plan was correct. So that portion where you had that tactic, where the around move 15, I think. Let's go back to that. Where you could have moved your rooks over to G and H files and then had a lot of pressure on his king. No, that was a little bit later, around move 23, where you had that tactic with either H takes G or G takes H
Right.
for one of the rooks over. You were talking about moving the rooks over and attacking on the king side. And that's exactly what we were talking about at the same time. But then you eventually decided to do the bishop takes knight plan.
Yeah, I think I just got overloaded, and then so I thought, well, this looks like a simple, it was a simplified type play. So um, usually in these cases, they're not the best, but it was, I don't know, there was just too many candidate moves in that situation for me. One of my thoughts was like, well, yeah, I can move the D rook over, but then I concede that D file right away, and maybe it would be more flexible to just keep it for now and just see how these exchanges play out. I think that was what I was thinking.
Right. Well, I think the initial thoughts that you voiced were talking about the rooks coming over, and um, I think once you had some doubts about that, that's when it was pretty interesting to hear why exactly maybe opening the D file for black, or um, getting rid of a defender that night on the king side for black. Those reasons that you have to doubt your plans, you kind of voice some of those with various moves, and that was interesting to hear, just to see aspects of the position that the commentators weren't necessarily talking about.
Right. Well, I think that was the plan from the get-go, hoping that you just never hear the players talking about their plan during the game, and so it's easy to focus on what I guess the stronger players or even the engine has to say, and those uh, those incorrect ideas that we all have usually just don't get brought to the surface. So I think that was the whole point of doing the stream in this format, and just to see, just to show other viewers that it's not just them that has trouble coming up with the correct plan in the games.
Yeah, that was definitely a good thing about the stream. So thanks for doing that.
Sure. Well, hopefully somebody else wants to give it a try in the future. And again, I appreciate you taking the time to help out with it. I don't have anything else for it, unless you do.
No, I think we went over the um, main turning points in the game. Um, and then the end game, there were a couple things that we could have mentioned, but it was pretty much winning the whole time for white. So uh, nothing too big to harp on.
Yeah, if anything, I probably played it cautiously.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Well, hey, enjoy your evening, and we'll do it again sometime.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Bye bye.